They asked me to reread one that something happened from paper to sound waves. I guess I should try to rewrite it as I stand here. It had to do with, it was listed as wartime rhetoric definitions. So let me give you a hint. Consider it had to do with such things as firing squads. You understand? The definition was periods, commas, executed. Or conclusions, the death of thinking. Oh, all right. The one supposedly to be analyzed. Thus far, it's a piece of frozen pie. Do 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 do. And they say there's too much violence on TV. I'm as surprised as you are. In the city, even the most educated of men, could include sophisticated in one of the definitions of the word, but the most educated of men, they do not look for intellectual leadership, but rather to see who it is to whom they must submit. This gets, there's more to it, but that gets at the heart of what ordinary people, if they heard us using this kind of allegorical terminology, that all forms of religion, all forms of collective, institutional, mystical, individual manifestations that can be described of men attempting to evolve could be described as trying to think more. And they could say, well, be more intellectual. And I could say, well, all right, speaking on your behalf in 3/4, I could say, all right. And so you would think that the educated, definitely, those educated in the city, ordinary people, would be looking for intellectual leadership. That is, a man majors in theology, philosophy, whatever his field, but especially the softer sciences. And you would think then, even after he once got his own master's, his graduate, his degree, that what he would look for in the widest possible sense would be to further himself in that field, assuming that he actually started out being interested in philosophy, because why else would he go into it? So you would think, and they would insist it be true, that here it is, a man has gone to school, expended great effort, and after 10 or 11 years, he now has his PhD in philosophy from a prestigious college, university. And so you would think that in the widest possible sense, he would, among all people, seek intellectual leadership. And by that, I intend it to mean that he would seek to even go further, because just because you had a PhD from Oxford or Cambridge, You certainly would not think, if you were just an ordinary educated man, you would not think, well, I know everything there is to be known about this field. You know that's not true. They know that's not true. And so you would think, well, what they look for then, even after graduating, that if that was truly their field of interest, if they were representational of an educated person, then far beyond them having to study, having to read obscure writings and manuscripts and research to get their PhD, that beyond the requirement, they would then, on their own, seek out that which would expand their minds in their area. Intellectual leadership. But they do not. Nobody does. But I use this as a specific example since we're still talking about the captivity of man neurally, about him not having truly an individual mind, that ordinarily we are all born into a herd, and ordinarily most of us end up on the killing floor of Chicago somewhere, still a cow. Men do not seek intellectual leadership. As soon as they get out of school, as soon as they get their degree, what do? They immediately turn around to see to whom it is they got to look up on. Being crude. They have to see to who it is that I now must submit. They get their PhD, we'll assume by then they'd already been trying to weasel their way into the faculty somewhere. And so they have to look around. Well, now I am through with that which I decided was necessary for me to pursue this line of endeavor for the rest of my life and get some nice perks and retire. And so what do? You do not look for intellectual leadership. You look around, all right, who is I got to suck up to? Who is I going to have to dance with backwards? Who is I got to sleep with to get in here? This is not just true in the academic world, of course. This is the nature of being sane. This is the nature of adopting. It's already been put upon you. You've already been given that initial excuse. You've already been given that initial degree by being alive. But now you must apparently take it upon yourself some sort of mature responsibility. Now that you are no longer in school, now that you finally got to get some kind of phony baloney job, make a living. What is it now? In a sense, the charade is over. Yeah, I got my PhD. I am now doctor of philosophy. Who I got to sleep with to get a goddamn job? It's like when you're born. Life gives you remember there was a news story that life gives everyone an excuse from your mama. Life also gives you a degree, in a sense. Long before you go to school, if you do, life gives you a degree. It says, instead of PhD in philosophy, it's just got your name. That's always you. Yes, I'm a graduate of me. Are you actually Julio Hirschfield? That's right. I have my own degree. I was born, that's me. And after that, anything else is just sort of little fancy stickers you put on the degree. You can say, yes, I am Julio Hirschfield and I am a plumber. Or, yes, I'm Julio Hirschfield, I am a rocket scientist. I am from Nova Scotia, I am from Argentina. The rest of it's sort of immaterial. Your degree is that you're somebody, that you can talk, you can answer to a name. That's the degree. So in that sense, you understand, even if you never go to school, you do not need to go to college, much less go to graduate school. But you're still left with turning around, and you might think that even an ordinary person with no particular education would seek intellectual leadership. That is, to further their mind. It's the one thing a man's got that stands him aside from, no offense to our fine furried friends, but that stands you aside from a badger or an otter. Is your mind. So you would think that even those with the lowliest of education, no offense to philosophers, but with the lowliest of education, that the whole thing about being alive, if you're actually going to be a man of some sort, would be to what? Expand that one part that's singular. It's all right to take up weightlifting. It's all right to take up ballet. It's all right to take up do-it-yourself cosmetic surgery, I guess. It would be all right in the hormonal sense, you know, to run, to build yourself up, to lose weight, to try and sculpt your body, etc. But from any view, if we were just going to talk about it in something resembling a philosophical manner, you would think that anybody who made any claim to be a human would attempt to to develop the one thing that makes them human. Besides the muscles and all the, every other thing can be physically pleasurable. You would think that he would seek, in the sense that I used it in the news story, intellectual leadership. Where can I turn? What can I do? What could I pursue? I know it seems at the ordinary level it would be some sort of personification that you would be looking, who could I look to, either an individual or institutionally? Who, what church, what religion, what philosophy, or just what person can I look to for intellectual leadership? And all that, forget now the personage. That's just the easy way out. That's why people have heroes and read fiction. In a broader sense, taking it from an object back to where it belonged, to an action, from a noun to a verb, a person, if they were aspiring, even almost passively, if they were just saying, yes, I'm a human, and I'm going to do something resembling what a human should do, it would be to develop the one thing that's singular. That is, where can I look to for intellectual leadership? What would help do this? That is not the way things work. Simply because, may I refer you back to another item, because the cats still run the world. It's the birds that say, no, not necessarily. Because it's the birds that could hear this, the birds and people, that could hear what I've just done for the last 15 minutes and go, all right, I followed that. Who's that talking? A cuckoo bird? How'd you follow that? That's a little joke that me and... Oh, I knew nobody else would laugh. At any rate, the birds would say, the people do seek intellectual leadership of some sort, but that's the birds talking. That's the very ones that should be seeking intellectual leadership, intellectual expansion. But to show you that, in a quite real observable sense, that cats still lead the dance at the local level, people do not. Those who just graduated with their doctorate degree, all the way from that to people with no degrees, no education of any, none of them look to expand this. They do not look for intellectual leadership. They immediately turn around, immediately sometime. It could be the age of 12 and it could be the age of 30 after they graduated. But they look around and they just simply look to try and see, who is it that I must submit to? I am still in the tiger pack, if there was such a thing. I'm still in the cat pack. Birds say, yes, we should be seeking some sort of intellectual expansion of our horizons. But it doesn't cost birds, in a sense, anything to say that. That's their job. They're paid to do it. But what do men actually do? They look right around, as they are supposed to see who it is I got to suck up to get by. To whom do I have to submit? Moreover, there was more to the news item. On the ballroom floor in the city, while it's true that cats apparently do lead birds, both couples are following life, which is the difference between the local and the universal. It's the difference between what seems to be the local reality of man and something outside that, which outside that I can call it the universal, but you can also call it the world of possibility. You can call it the impertinent world of possibility. That's the universal. The local is only that which seems to be of some significance. So people saying, well, why the hell do you think went to all the school and got a degree? Must have got a damn job. I don't think anymore. I tried to think. I had to pass for thinking. I'm back to my first example. The guy with a doctorate degree in philosophy is saying, what the hell you want from me? I'm 30 years old. I've been in school for 12 years while you're out living it up. I want a job. I don't think anymore. For the last 6 or 8 years, I've been having to fake. You understand? I've been having to sit there with these guys smoking pipes and, them trying to live out their last days and retire and all their little tweed coats and going, and me trying to pass like, boy, Schiller really, and I just love him. Or Kierkegaard, boyish, keeps me up all night reading him. Yeah, I've been having to fake that for years. Hey, I'm through with school. I don't need that. What I want is a job. That's the difference between the... See, they do not want to consider that which is impertinent, because now what is pertinent to them is the cat part of the dance. Their birds now go, all right, who have I got to sleep with? What cat have I got to sleep with to get a damn job, to get by? some more. Ha! Third paragraph. Happily shuddered one little dancer as he thought about what we've been talking about. He went, death. The ultimate dip. But meanwhile, over in an omnipresent corner, doing his own secret solo tango, a thinker sang to himself, though with cats I dance, 'tis only in the ears of birds that I whisper sweet nothing. Sweet nothings. Is there any chance that none of you are old enough or had enough exposure to piano roll music, or sweet nothings is what they used to call, you know. Little love talk, pillow talk, romantic chit chat, dancing and going, you know, what's your sign? Well, I've never seen you here. You've never been here before, because anyone as beautiful as you, Dip, I would remember. That's sweet nothings. Just, you know, hello, you're beautiful. Just that kind of thing. That's sweet nothing. So a thinker points out, there he is in the ever-present corner. As if you're alive, you're in the omnipresent corner. It's only ordinary people that believe in ideas of local transcendentalation. That is, yes, I'm local, but all I've got to do is go crazy enough and my mind will go with the universal. It'll be with the gods and the cosmic forces. I keep offering. They won't spend 20 or 30 years taking drugs and meditating when all it takes is a small little tack hammer, like an upholsterer's hammer. And you can put them right there. I know some of them say, well, that's cheating. Plus they're afraid it'll hurt. There is the omnipresent corner where a thinker is. He's always there. If you're alive, you're there. You're in the ballroom somewhere. But he says, and I quote, as he sang to himself, though with cats I dance, 'tis only in the ears of birds I whisper sweet nothings. This is still tied to the opening part of this news item about that even the most educated men do not look for intellectual leadership. They look around to see who it is that they've got to submit to. Everybody dances with the cats. Anybody that doesn't believe that, fill in the blank. Pick out any naughty term, any insulting phrase you want to use, such as ordinary. You'd be the type of person, if you do not understand that, you'd be the type of person that still thinks that all of the evidence is not yet in regarding the relative importance of genetics on a person and the environment. There's just simply not enough evidence. What would you, in that case, if they're telling the truth, and many of them say they are, people much more education than you and I and great credentials that say just the evidence is not sufficient yet, it's not in. Where do they take like 8,000 years of human history and file that? I don't know, just in regards to there's not enough evidence in. And don't look this way, sir. My God. No. Everyone is dancing with the birds. This real thinker was saying it to himself. Though with birds I dance. He didn't say maybe. Though with birds I dance, 'tis only in the ears, though with cats I dance, it's only in the ears of birds that I whisper sweet nothings. Put it another way, everyone is dancing with hormones. Well, let me rephrase his. Though with hormones I dance, 'tis only in the ears of neurons that I whisper sweet nothings. That, if there is such a thing as being diametrically opposed, which ordinary minds thinks there is, then that would be an example of it. Because ordinary people whisper to what? They whisper to the cats. They deny it. They cannot understand it. When I say they deny it, it's the birds in their head. It's the birds in their system go, no, we don't. Then why is it that the poor, there was another news item last night, that the poor always discuss money, but why the dumb never intelligence? The birds never discuss what you want to discuss. Remember, we're talking about neurons now. You can take a man, it doesn't matter his education. You want to talk to him about intelligence, and he wants to talk about hormones. Now the birds are smart enough, because that's their job. They're trained enough that they will not put it to you that way. And if you put it to them that way, they'll deny it. Or say, wait a minute. Because remember what their job is. The cats run the world. The bird's job is, well now, as I point out, they've got sort of two ways they can approach it. Either deny it, and if that works, so be it. Or discuss it to death. If you ask the birds and everyone, or if you said to the birds and everyone, ordinary person, what I just said, that the birds always want to talk about that they're not dancing with the cats, that the cats are not leading the dance, they would say, no, it's not. Because the more intelligent you are, the more sophisticated you are, the more you talk about sophisticated, educated things. And if we just at least put a dice there, or a semicolon, and go on about our business, you wouldn't question it. Well, that's true. It's not true. All you got to do is listen to your own nervous system. All you got to do is listen to the rumble of the herd itself. And if that doesn't work, pick up a magazine, turn on the TV, read a newspaper, go out around a group of city-bred, city-level intellectuals. And what do they talk about? They do not talk about intellectual leadership. They do not talk about anything to any substantial degree other than affairs a la feline. But if you say, wait a minute, I came here, I weaseled my way. I got an invitation to come here. I always wanted to attend one of these Friday afternoon cocktail parties here at the philosophy department at Princeton. All my life I've dreamed of this. And I got in now, and I dressed up, and I kind of got my way in, and I've been about here 5 or 10 minutes going around and smiling and nodding. And all I've heard is you people talking about basketball, money, tenure. I hadn't heard one thing that seemed to be an intellectual challenge or about anything that was bird talk. And suddenly, all you had to do was say that, and all you'd hear is, chirp, 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 chirp. And you, if you were ordinary, you couldn't refute it either. You're surrounded by 50 other people, and you say, what a disappointment. I cannot believe this. All you're doing is talking about hormonal stuff. You're just the only thing I can see. The only difference, and it's irrelevant, the only difference thing I see between you guys and the 40 or 50 guys that every Friday, after the plant closes down for the weekend, the cement plant down in Tuscaloosa, and I go around there hang around them guys, all they do is talk about pussy and beer and, the only difference I see between them and you is you're talking about basketball and money. Well, they talk about money, but you guys are talking now about, well, maybe if I can extend my tenure here, I can get that raised up to $120,000. And down there, they're thinking, hell, if me and my wife could just make $20,000. But that's the only difference. What? I can't believe that you guys, some of the greatest minds in the country, and you're talking about basketball. And they would suddenly begin to chirp. And the point is, you cannot, all this is moot and stupid and a waste of time because none of this could happen. But they would immediately chirp, and if we can go ahead and have it my way of me making up all this scene, and you tried to listen, and you kept trying to say, no, all you're doing right quick since I accused you, now all of you are starting to talk about intelligent stuff. They don't even have to talk about intelligent stuff. All they got to do is turn around and deny it. That's all the birds get paid to do, is just deny it. Well, they can then discuss it to death, but in the case I'm making up, just follow this. This is the way the herd works. The herd is alive. The collective is alive. It's not a whole bunch of individual cows or men. It's a thing. If you don't believe it, we've been through this before. On the way home, got there on the expressway driving 80 miles an hour, shoulder to shoulder, bumper to bumper, and just suddenly think, not only yourself, that's bad enough, and realize that your mind's on a trip somewhere else. But suddenly realize that you're surrounded, just where you can see, 1,000 cars, right quick. And in that 1,000 cars, 200 people are drunk, another 50 are on narcotics of some other kind. Several hundred of them have serious emotional problems, and about to black out. And yet you get home night after night. If you think that the collective is not a thing and alive and more intelligent than you, of course, an ordinary person, a cow's not supposed to think that. You think, well, no, I'm responsible. At least, by God, it's a good thing I am more conscious, because you're right. We're probably surrounded by idiots out here. That's right, sir. Be sure and look out your window. Yes, we're surrounded by idiots. I mean, dangerous drivers. You got to watch it. Yes, sir. I'm glad I'm awake. Glad I'm conscious. That's what, in a sense, if you're going to follow, well, I went through that for a reason, not just to get a laugh. In a sense, at that party I made up, as soon as you said, I can't believe that you guys, the creme de la creme, I imagined, of American intellectual life circa 1993, are talking, you're all standing here talking about your jobs and how much money you got more money now, most of it, than you would ever spend. You don't need that. Talking about that and whether you're going to get a new summer home, whether you're going to get a beach house out of Martha's Vineyard. I hadn't heard one thing, and they all turn on you. And I said that all began to cheat and deny it. Here's why I wanted you to go. It's almost like the expressway. If you can follow this right quick, they almost do not even have to verbally deny it. It's these 50 people turn on you, and they can cheat without saying anything, because it's not them, it's life. It's life. It's the collective of life. You can come up to life if you wanted to. I've pointed this out to you before. You go up to life, if you get attention, just local life, and go, hey, your fly's unzipped. And local life can just go, was that dramatic enough? If any of this could happen, it doesn't really have to go through a whole lot. It didn't have to go, well, you insignificant little pipsqueak. Life doesn't have to do that. All life got to do is almost just the most minor piece of body language. That in some way you got its attention. You could tug on life's pants leg and go, I always wanted to meet you, but now that I see you, you're not that big a deal. Let's put it that way. You understand? All life's got to do is kind of go, just almost anything to just a split second, like an acknowledgement of you. Do you understand? And it doesn't matter what. I mean, scratching my crotch and all that. It's almost, I don't mean it to be offensive. I'm just trying to get your attention with that. But if you got its attention and made some comment like, well, you're nothing at all like I imagined. It's sort of like maybe an elephant finally realizes a flea bit him. And the flea just keeps on and on. And it's like it just looks for a second, and that's all it amounts to. There's the message. It doesn't have to be offensive. It doesn't have to call you a pipsqueak. It doesn't have to go, It's just the point that it glanced at you momentarily and then glanced immediately away that gives you the message that it doesn't have to say anything else. I don't mean this just offensively. But it just glances and then it looks off, because the point is, you amount to nothing individually. It's not that you amount to less than anybody else. The people, the philosophers in the room that you begin to condemn, that they are not involved with bird activity or bird talk. All they're doing is meowing. All they're doing is hormonal stuff. They're all dressed up. You still rolling?
Yes.
The people standing that you accused of just being involved with crude, uncivilized, unsophisticated, hormonal, cat-level talk. Do you understand what I was trying to get you to see? And we're not talking about individual people now, but this is a prime example. And I think most of you already got the feel of it. So my words are not necessarily that important if you saw it. But when I said the birds will either deny it or talk it to death, when you say, I can't believe I went to all the trouble to come here, blah, 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 and all you're doing, you're talking about the same kind of crap. You just up the stakes a little bit. Down in Mississippi, when I hang around the guys at the cement factory, they talk about the local AAA baseball team. And you guys are talking about the Boston Red Sox. It's the only difference. They're talking about guys you never heard of. You're talking about guys that are famous and make money, and I heard you standing here comparing what you make to what baseball. I thought I'd come up here and hear something intellectual. You realize these 50 people, they do not really have to turn around and deny it. They would do the same thing that I was trying to do with life when you tugged at its leg and its pants and said, you're not at all like I thought. You're not that impressive. The 50 would just have to stop and just almost glance and just go back to what they were doing. And that's the end of it. They have denied it, but it's not they. The dance of life is such that which runs life, that which is necessary to keep the dance going locally, keeps going. The cats are leading the dance, but it's up to the birds to go, no. And there, I could even shave it down between the two of saying that the birds are paid to deny it or to talk it to death. In between there are other things that about covers it though, but it's cats saying, maybe you're not looking at it correctly. Or come on, maybe you caught me at a slow time. Or wait a minute, there's not enough statistics in yet. We don't have enough evidence. Or the real fallback of the birds is for them to say, that can't be true, because if that was true, how do you explain the fact that I can deny it? It cannot be literally true, because cats can't talk, right? So who is it that's telling you that cats are not doing it? There's got to be something here besides cats. Which is another version, if you'd like it, I just came up with another falling out of grace or getting thrown out of the Eden condo. Is they suddenly realize, wait a minute, all I hear is just heredity. I'm sick of hearing it. And Ken and Barbie, little lovebirds that they were, suddenly thought to one another, or to each other when I'm asked, wait a minute, it's got to be more. It can't be what it appears to be. It can't be just heredity. That is, it can't be just cats. And Ken says, why, Barbie? And she says, well, if it was just genetics, or heredity, or cats, if that's all it was, then what is it within us that can even say, wait a minute, it might not be? If it was all cats, if it is all genetics, then there would be nobody in there to deny it. If the house of me, if the garden of me is nothing but genetics, if that's all it is, that theory, and Ken goes, yeah. She says, if that's all it was, then there wouldn't be anybody in there other than genetics, right? Or other than heredity. And he goes, well, it's self-evident from what you said. She says, bird that she is. She says, all right, if that's true, then what is it in me, speaking about me generically now, as a human, what is it in me or you that can even question it, that can say, well, wait a minute, maybe not. That proves there is fifth column work of some kind. There is some kind of stranger in paradise. And they got you. It's life just glancing at you. When you're saying, boy, things are not at all like I thought. Now that I look up your pants leg, and life goes. And that's it. The 50 people that you say, wait a minute, all you guys are doing is cat talk. I came up here to hear the songs of birds. And they just stop momentarily. Because you are in the wrong place. You are a spatial anomaly at the time. You're a bump on that particular flank of the collective intelligence of man. The proof being that they look around that you're not supposed to say something like that here. That's all they're saying. And there's the proof. They wouldn't have stopped and turned around just momentarily. They don't have to attack you. They don't have to throw you out. They don't have to go, ooh, what a gauche little man you are. They don't have to do anything. All they do is stop and they look. And the look is that this is out of place. They don't have to say it's right or wrong. It's just, well, this is not at all toward. There's your proof. Just momentarily, and then the herd turns back about its business. The interstate rolls on, bumper to bumper, shoulder to shoulder. Humanity marches on. The cats continue to lead, and all the bird brains. Couldn't resist it. I knew it was going to come out sooner or later. All the bird brains go, well, no. It's a nice theory, but it cannot be absolutely true, or else I would not be here to even question it. And all the other bird brains go, they got us there, Hubert. All of that will only fly, all of that will only purr and scratch at your furniture in a binary world. That is where you could not make sense, even if they could hear it and tolerate it or entertain it. The idea that I presented, that cats run the world, that's not the end of it. And now birds have the responsibility of denying it. I didn't put it specifically because it's not infinitely true, but that would infer, if you want to look at it one way, that the birds are working. It's not directly for the cats. The cats are the subcontractor. That is, if the cats go out of business, the birds are out of business. So to say that the cats run the world, still run the world, and it's birds' responsibility. Birds have been hired, they have a job to do, and their job is to deny it, or to talk it to death, to discuss it to death. What else? How else can it be? But then to use the idea that this cannot be true, back to my Garden of Eden and Ken and Barbie and whatever, if you followed, the proof of it being that a person is presented with the fact, listen, we'll make it real plain. We'll take one of the real crude city level descriptions of this sort of thing. If a man says, well, everything is genetics, everything is hereditary, everything is predestined in that sense. And another man hears that and go, well, I've heard that, I've even thought about it, but you know what? I'm not a philosopher, but that can't be true. And the first guy said, well, why not? Sometimes I'm just positive it's true, that just everything is just like a great piece of machinery and it's just all predestined. And the guy says, yeah, well, I've thought about that, but here's the thing. That can't be true. And the guy goes, well, why? And he said, it can't be true, or I couldn't, or you couldn't even question it. There wouldn't be one little question. If there was no amount of freedom, we wouldn't have the freedom to go, wait a minute, it may not be true that we're all damn captives. We may be, partially chained somewhere, let's say, but we cannot be literal captives totally, or else there wouldn't be this piece of us to go, I don't believe it. Or sometimes I doubt it. There would not be one questioning, much less dissenting voice, right? They got you. Except for this. That's the birds talking, and who the hell they work for. What are they going to say? They're going to put themselves out of a job? Not hardly. Because they're more intellectual than my first example of a guy who just graduated from Cambridge or Harvard. They're much more intelligent than that. What they got to do is see who it is that they got sucked up to. They don't have to look. It's the cats. So you start attacking the cats, and the birds say, well, no, wait a minute. Once you see it, what are they going to say? It's not some kind of conspiracy, unless you want to call life continuing being a conspiracy. And if you really think it is, then good luck to you to see through it, because all it is suicidal. If you could finally pull up life's skirt and go, I knew it was a conspiracy, then I guess you would have finally made life suffer the ultimate terminal indignity, but I just want you to understand you would have also killed yourself and everybody else. So thanks a lot. I'm afraid I confused it. You understand, the ultimate proof, evidently, at the ordinary ballroom, the local level, is to say, wait a minute, cats don't run everything, hormones don't run everything, life is not just simply some genetic network that just rolls on, expands larger and larger in the hormonal sense, in the physical. It's not. And the other person says, well, sometimes I think it is. And the first guy says, well, me too, I think it is, except I always come back to this. And the guy says, what? He said, the fact that we can stand here, you and I, and even question it. Just say, well, sometimes I don't believe it. There's the proof that it can't be true. But that's on the basis that the one talking, the birds, are subcontractors to other subcontractors. That is, the birds depend upon the cats. Not just for a decent job, to stay alive. The thinker at the end of that news item that was over by himself in the corner doing his own tango and singing to himself said, though it be with genetics, though it be with point-blank reality, though it be with cats, though it be with hormones, though it be with cats I dance, 'tis only in the sweet ears of birds that I whisper these romantic nothings. What else would a real person, a real human that understood the only place that I can grow, maybe shortly we'll drop this whole thing about grow and expand, because you're going to grow and expand as collectively anyway. Point is, it's fun. It's not that you're supposed to be doing this or anything resembling it. You're supposed to be doing whatever you want to do. Out on the expressway. Out saying, cats don't run this expressway, people do. That's what you should be doing. You shouldn't be doing this, it's not required. It's whether it's fun or not. But the guy's over there, and he's saying, I'm saving the sweet nothings for the ears of birds. It would be a matter of economics, in a sense. Why waste your time on the inevitable? He says, he's thinking to himself, though I dance with cats. Again, as if you had a choice. Well, you do have a choice. You can either dance with cats or die. It's up to you. It's your call. If you're alive, you're dancing with cats. But after that, once you understand, I'm dancing with cats. Cats are running the dance floor. Without the cats, the place is gone. You won't even stay open long enough for me to go home and come back tomorrow night and see it's closed. It's gone now. So, though I dance with cats, 'tis only in the ears of birds that I whisper sweet nothings. That is, a man, it's a matter of efficiency, a matter of conservation of energy, you might say, but a matter of fun. You have all the fun you can physically, but then there's another form of fun. Or if you want to look at it, what seems to be a more, to ordinary minds, beneficial way, once you get as big of muscles as you can, once you get as small a waist as you can, once you do anything you can harmoniously. You know, you eat all you can, you fast all you can, you screw all you can, you celebrate all you can. You do everything you can harmoniously, which doesn't take any effort. All you got to do is drive. So you dance with cats. Though I dance with cats, I reserve my sweet nothings for the ears of the birds. Once you see it, it's not like you got a choice. But it's everyone else. It's the guys back at my philosophers at the Friday afternoon cocktail party. There they are. That you would assume that example would be the intellectual elite of the city, the educated of civilization. But who are they whispering to? They're still whispering to the cats. And that's what the guy in my example said that he found so disturbing. That my friends down in Mississippi at the cement plant on Friday afternoon, they don't call it cocktail hour, they call it let's go over at Joe's and get shit-faced, and the week's over. But it's their cocktail party, but all they do is talk to cats. I go over there and all they're talking about is that damn little old half-ass AAA ball team, if you call it that plays down there. They're talking about pickup trucks, they're talking about women, they're talking about cats. Except that's the best they can do. There's nothing wrong with it, as you know. That's not it. But that's all they can whisper to. And they save even their best whispers. They save their, what in the news I was referring to as the sweet nothings. They reserve their best intellectual effort. Man staying around at this cheap sawdust floored bar after 2 or 3 beers. And even a man who works in a cement factory plant can wax philosophically if he can get himself cleaned off enough for it to stick. And you think, well, here goes a man, he's going to converse about feathery affairs. And how will an ordinary person begin to wax philosophically? He'll say, can you believe that old Lefty Barnes, the team, this AAA team, or it is the Mississippi Sheiks, can you believe that they let Lefty go and they brought up that guy from Panama City, that old Bubba whatever Brown or whatever his name, they brought, can you believe they swapped? What goes on in the mind of that manager of our team? And you could laugh or scoff and say, well, that's not very philosophical. That's the best they can do. What's the difference between that and what the guys are talking about at the cocktail party up at Harvard or Oxford? You take an ordinary person, and the sweetest they can say is what? It is always still cat-based. I could even suggest to you, if you don't see an immediate point, where do you think that the idea of romance came from? That was one of life's better tricks. That's getting real close to the great trick of religion as a specific institution I pointed out, of encouraging men within themselves to do better on the basis that this information, this urging, is coming from outside, so don't fuck around with it. You better take it seriously. Also romance. It is like taking the dancing with the cats, which is sex, and making it sound as though it's bird talk. And having little cards, having little stories, having little fables, having little men dress up in little tin outfits and get on little horses and go, I will ride off to save a little maiden if I can find a real teensy-weensy little dragon or somebody. I'll be chivalrous in a teensy sort of way if it doesn't interfere with the Friday afternoon cocktail party. But the whole idea, a little card that says, roses are red, violets are blue, well, never mind. Maybe that's not all that romantic. Well, it is in Mississippi. But romance is, I just want you to see, well, religion is, and you can look at everything this way. But that's the best. Romance is birds saying that they're not talking about cat things. And that's the best they can do. But you understand, it's still cat stuff. If there's still any doubt, I will refer you back and then we'll stop. I know this gets kind of sticky at times. But anytime you could ask, I'll go ahead and do it for you. Then after all of this, if you followed it, a person could ask, well, in that case, give me an example. What would be men standing around and actually talking about things that were not either literally, absolutely cat-based, or at least less so, to where the example, the distinction would be distinctive. How about this? Did you follow that? That'd be a good challenge. It's just, don't mean just to me, but to yourself to think, well, what would it be? What the hell else could you talk about? I'm going to answer it, as you might expect, or fear, somewhat obliquely. Well, as oblique as a point-blank wall. How about a henola? It would have to be talk that was not about what kind of guy you or someone else was. If you can extract that, then you've got something that is not in the same league as the kind of routine cat talk that I've tried to describe all the way from this fictitious cocktail party of 50 famous or well-known philosophers to 50 guys half shit-faced already down in Mississippi on a Friday afternoon. If you can extract, if you can think of some kind of conversation, some kind of talk that does not begin, as another man pointed out, a real thinker, did you notice a few nights ago, he said he had narrowed down his kind of intellectual interest, or he called it focused, I believe, not narrowed down, but he had focused it better, that he now refused to read anything, fiction, non-fiction, whatever field it was in, if it did not start out with the word I. Because he understood that. He understood, well, hey, if it doesn't start out, this book, major breakthroughs now in particle physics, and skip all the preface and all that stuff if you're a real thinker and I'm interested in that. So you start off and it's by Dr. So-and-so, Professor so-and-so, well known, and so it starts out and he says, I had been concerned for the last 15 years while working at BERM whether we were going to ever get a larger accelerator built. As long as there's I there. And that's not an attack, as you know by now. It's not an attack on people's egoism. It only represents the humanity of what's going on. It apparently represents individual effort, doesn't it? Because we could say that the man who wrote this book is supposed to be the latest word in print on particle physics. And the first word, first chapter, first thing he writes, again, forget the preface and all that. All that's afterthought. The first word he says, I have been working, I have been pondering, I have something. I am delighted to report to you. Now, it's not an attack on this man because we might meet him and by all public local appearances he may be humble as a man who works in a cement plant, sober. That's not it. Why is it that this man, according to the news item, says that he will not even seriously entertain anything fiction or non-fiction? But, fiction would be easy to go out. But non-fiction, unless it begins with the word I. All right, look at it as being an attack on the author's lack of humility. It's not that. It's ordinary mind, which is one way to say ordinary cows, ordinary thinkers. If they do not see the, quote, humanity in what's going on, they don't find it of any interest. Try it to you another way. Since we're off the public tape and you know that I'm not talking about me, so I don't have to say I, but I'm going to have to say I. Enough of you in years past have been around when I'd show up somewhere, fly up to New York or California or do something publicly anywhere, and a group of people show up. You know, several hundred or people be there, and I come out and talk. You know, no introduction, but nobody comes out and say, well, here he is, and you say who I am. Everywhere else, as you know by now, which is the preface to books and everything else, it's so common you forget it. But you go to a place that's called Joe's Comedy Store, or just the club for comedy, and you go in, and somebody's going to come out, some MC, the owner of the joint, somebody, they'll send a waitress up, they'll go say, well, glad you're all here, and you're in for a treat because here's one of America's fastest rising comedians. Here he is. And you're just used to it. What the hell they got to say he's a comedian? I mean, he comes out and he starts telling jokes. He starts talking, and just within 30 seconds, you're laughing, you and everybody else. Why do they have to come out and say that he's a comedian? I'll tell you why. Because they have to. That's why. You got to know what it is. If you're ordinary. All right, now that you follow, and it's everywhere, not just that seems to be, you think, well, that's just blatant, now that you point it out. But see, the ordinary is the same way as those 50 guys at a cocktail party. Just look at you, and you know, well, that was out of place. It was out of place for me to say, have you noticed that you're going to a comedy place? Or you're going to a place that's called Sam's Magic Club. Magicians, nothing but magic. And before the guy comes out, he's standing in the wings, you see him with a tuxedo and tails and a top hat and a cane. Somebody will come out and say, tonight we have one of Europe's best known magicians. Like if they don't say anything, he's going to come out and go and pull out a bird, and you're going to think, he's a comedian? Is he a priest? Or you think, well, everybody can see what it is. You got to be an idiot. And yet they do it. You just don't notice it. They have to tell you what it is. And I say you, the nervous system. I was going to say, to extract me from it, but some of you have seen it. And it happens, when people stagger in here through the open door. But it's been very common. I get up several hundred people, and after it's over, if I stuck around, there'd be people who would come up, and people do it even by mail. But some of you have been there and seen it. It's no great secret. And people will come up and go, that was really interesting. I really enjoyed that. Of course, that's always a minority. They'll even do that. But they will without fail. They'll go, what do you call it? What is this? And they're being friendly. They're saying, boy, I really enjoyed that. I'm not putting this on. They go, oh, God, that was good. What do you call it? What's a real waste of time, if I were to say, well, if you enjoyed it that much, let me ask you this. Why does it have to be something? Why do I have to put a name on it? If I did do that, that almost takes away even the immediate friendliness of the people. And you guys understand, and you out there, that we're not talking about me, we're not talking about what I said, I'm talking about the arrangement of the collective intelligence of man. And I slipped in several news items tonight, and somebody already asked or point out something similar that happened in their life in the last 48 hours. It's not enough, the first news item, I didn't pull it out, but it said, it's not enough to say to ordinary people that, hey, what it is what it is. And I didn't mean that just to be flip, although I tried to give you a way out, because you remember number 2 that Don read, the very next page, it went, hey, what it is, bro, which kind of gave you a way out. That'd be like me talking to people, go, I really enjoyed that, what is it? And I went, well, it's New Age bricklaying. It's New Age allegorical bricklaying. They'd go, oh, that's what it is, bro. Then they'd wander off. And that'd be that. It's like you cut them off there. You finally, you took the comma. That is, they're going, boy, I really enjoyed that tonight. I'd never heard of you or anything, but boy, I enjoyed that, comma, what is it? And if you tell them, it's like you executed. You took the comma and you cut it off. Then they go, oh. And you could tell them something that was an absolute non sequitur. But, it's New Age allegorical bricklaying. Ooh. They might not immediately say, well, I understand that, but they'd go, And so they might shake your hand and they'd wander off. But to say what it is what it is not sufficient. you have got to call it something. And then there was another news item I threw in later tonight, way in toward the end, that said that ordinary minds can't even laugh at something they can't name, which is a variation, an extension of what I just talked about, that people can hear this. Somebody walking off the street, and if you ever notice, I'm sitting in the back. Well, you should know it by now. You know, people walk in, they'll start and they'll listen to some of it, and the laughter going on. That really throws them. And you see them again. And it's not just that they don't think any of it's funny. They don't even get that far. They walk in, there's no name, and people are laughing, and it's not only they don't know what it is, but at the very least, people can't even laugh at something unless they know what it is. Now I refer you back, the place says Fred's Comedy Club. And you go inside and there's nothing on the wall. When you walk into the box office, it's none but comedians. And they're playing comedy records before the show starts. But before the show starts, somebody will walk out there and say something about, here it is, directly from such and such club, one of the most hilarious comedians you're going to see this year. What the hell did you expect? You didn't expect anything. You expected what the guys at the philosophy cocktail party, you expected the collective intelligence, the express way of life, everything to move right along and get you home. But to walk in on something like this, and not just this, but anything else in life, to walk in, it's like you're sitting on a freeway to hell. Well, I mean, like you're on a freeway in the Twilight Zone. Like, you know, and you keep looking, suddenly people are laughing. And it's not just funny, this is not the point, but I guess, well, I know I could if you'll follow this. If I stopped reality and played that old game and I jumped on somebody, and just an ordinary person walked in for whatever reason, and we let it go for a couple of minutes, and they really begin to get itchy, and they start looking. Like, well, I wander into this, 12-step recovery program for idiots, or, are these insane people? Is it some kind of, halfway house? Why are they laughing? And they begin to look around because they don't know, am I supposed to laugh at this? Nobody told them what it is. So much less you can't, the people are disturbed. As I said, they'll come up afterwards and say, well, what is this? And it's serious. They stuck around and come up, not just to shake my hand or say I enjoyed it. That's, it was the intro. That was the entree to speak to me. And they'll go, and I'll shake. And they'll say, God, that was great. I really enjoyed that. And I could write down, predict everything, and just hand you a piece of paper, and I'd tell you whatever it called, and they'll go, what do you call it? What is it? And it's not an attack. They're asking. They want to know, because then they can take their reaction thus far, even though they said they enjoyed it, and put it somewhere. But to be in the midst of it, and nobody announces, here it is, the world's greatest magician. Here is the world's greatest comedian. It just goes. No intro, no nothing. They don't tell you what it is. But you would think that laughter, the reason I picked out laughter, that after pointing out that, just saying that the mind can't react properly to something if it doesn't have a name. You can't just say, well, hey, here it is, and what it is what it is. Like if you had an audience. You say, well, here's going to be a thing. Here's the intro to tonight. There's going to be something going on, and just what's going on is what's going on. They didn't see me up here. They didn't hire me to be some kind of low rent Zen MC. But I'm just telling you what's going on tonight here on stage. Following as soon as I walk off, what's going on is just what's going on. All right, and the guy leaves. No, that will not do. That's way too much like a comma. That's dangerously close to a dash, but I won't confuse it. But that's too much like a comma. It's too much like a point blank wall, and people don't know what to do with it. It's almost meaningless. But the reason, then I could have thrown in later others by throwing humor, because the point is you guys laugh all the time. And so people walk in. And that's just one kind of reaction. But laughter, you would think, is so common, seems to be so innocuous, so little threatening, that you would think at least when I walk in, I know what it is, and if everybody's laughing, and the stuff, I guarantee the same ones that people sit here for an hour and keep doing this, and then leave as quickly as it's over. If they saw some of this written down, again, we're not talking about me and my writing, but if they saw the same thing they heard written down, they were sitting over and had a cup of coffee, and they're just sitting there, they would laugh. If you just said something like, hey, you said, hey, have you ever read anything like this? You kind of just chuckle. You didn't have to say it. You just kind of, hey, look at this. And they'd laugh. The same thing they just heard. but they can't laugh. And I'm pointing out, they sit there and can't laugh, and they're surrounded by laughter. And if we just say something, if somebody would turn around, if I'd walk up to them and say, hey man, this is supposed to be a comedy show we're taping. They'd go, oh! Back to where I was leaving you. That is the kind of operational answer, although as non-verbally specific as it may have appeared. That is getting closer to non-cat talk, would be that which requires no intro, because if it requires no intro, you're not telling what kind of guy you are. Now, in ordinary life, apparently you're paying somebody else, or you're pushing somebody else to say, go out there and introduce me. Write a preface to my book. Go tell them I'm funny. Hey, go tell them that I just got through being booked in the Improv, or the Comedy Store, the original, in Hollywood. Tell them 2 weeks ago I was there. Tell them that. Go out, tell them. At least tell them that. The point is, tell them anything. Tell them I'm funny. Tell them I'm a damn comedian. Tell them I'm a minister. I mean, what if you walked out in this fine church you're visiting there, a nice big church, and you walk out and you begin to, try and make people feel guilty and refer to institutions, and they start laughing. And you have to think, didn't somebody tell me I was a minister? I'm not a comedian. This is a different gig this week. This is Sunday. Oh, we forgot to tell them. Talk that would not be whispering in the ears of cats. You got to dance with them anyway. You got to be some kind of guy. You're alive. But when you tell what kind of guy you are, and not just directly, not just saying, well, let me tell you how famous I am. When what you tell, what you talk about, is all starting with I. You're not talking about the world of the intellect. You're not talking about the world of ideas. Of course, you told that to an ordinary person, their birds will immediately go, and you go, oops, boy, talk about wasting my time. Because they can either deny it or just look at you. You say, you guys here, you are supposedly the supreme example of Western intellectual culture today, and you guys are talking about just crude hormonal stuff. It's a little fancied up, but you're not talking about the world of the intellect. You're not talking about the world of ideas. That's why I came here. That's why I snuck in. You're not talking about the world of that. Well, sure they are. If you don't believe it, go try it. And they'll just go, and when I say they, that one segment of life will just go. And that shows you what your opinion was worth. That shows you what that view was worth. That shows you that you're on the wrong expressway. You're in the wrong party. You have engaged in a most serious verbal fox pass. If there was whispering, it was possible to have conversation, talk that was not that directly cat-based, that you were whispering your sweet nothings. You reserved it for the one place that a man should, and gigantic quotations. Nobody seemed to like the one. I can't resist. The one guy was a tail end. It was something about a thinker wouldn't do something or don't do something. And one guy said he believed that if he heard the word don't one more time while he was alive, then when he died, the only thing he hoped was that he was going to rat heaven. I thought maybe if I did it would help. Don, it was obviously wasn't your delivery then. Nobody likes that? Maybe you people are too tied to the city after all. Anytime you can say don't and shouldn't and people perk up, it's kind of frightening. If you were whispering closer to the ears of the birds, if you were saving your intellectual effort for that which might do you some good, which is whispering in the sweet nothings in the ears of birds, not the cats, they don't need it. It's not going to help. There was another news item a few nights ago that says complimenting hormones will not help. I didn't try to speak on it the other night. It's just, you can compliment hormones all you want to. But what are you doing? You're saying, ha ha, I'm alive. The ordinary mind wants to subcategorize it. God, am I sexy? God, am I good looking? God, can I eat a lot? God, have I gotten fat? God, have I lost a lot of weight? Boy, can I sleep a lot? Boy, can I stay up a lot? You can do all that, but you're saying one thing. You're saying, hey, am I alive or what? So, In other words, you can't compliment hormones. Now, of course, we all know in ordinary life we do. That's romance. That's most chit-chat. But notice, that is talking to the cats. That's whispering to the cats. Not that there's anything wrong with it, but telling, a woman, or a man if you're a woman, whatever, you're telling your lover, God, are you beautiful? Boy, are you something. There's nothing wrong with that, but it doesn't change anything. I mean, you're going, if you're a woman, are you going to take this guy and keep telling him how good he looks, and if you tell him enough, his wang's going to get longer? Well, see, I did a better version. I was going to do that, if you kept telling a woman how beautiful it is, her tits will get bigger. It's not going to change hormones. You can whisper sweet nothing in the ears of cats, so what? That's the one step away from praying. That's like falling on your knees. Thank you, God, that you didn't, make me suffer any worse than I did today. Thank you, God, I didn't have a migraine today. It's only ordinary people that think that's going to do any good, because the point blank reality, even if they could just in a moment of weakness utter the truth, and you say, do you pray all the time? And the person, well, the real truth, they say, well, I got problems, after the fact. And you say, well, is it ever done good? And if just one moment they can suddenly tell the truth, they go, well, hell no. But you got to do something, right? Whispering in the ears of hormones, complimenting hormones won't do any good. It changes nothing. But notice that is, the reason I picked out the examples, that is what even passes for the sweet nothings that people do to one another. But it doesn't change anything. You can tell yourself, boy, am I good looking, boy, am I good looking. And the obvious part being, that's not going to change your IQ, to make it crude, right? It simply won't. But how can you whisper? How are you whispering sweet nothings in the ears of birds, which is to say that you're trying to feed yourself intellectually? Then the one thing you'll be not talking about is what kind of guy you are. Because the kind of guy you are is a cat dancer. That is, you're dancing backwards with cats. You're dancing backwards with cows. You're dancing backwards with local reality. You're a whore. You're easy, as they used to call it in the South. I don't know about up north. You're a pushover. I mean, life can walk in any bar and just kind of look at you and wink, and you immediately pull yourself up and say, I'm not that kind of girl. And life goes, and you're on your knees. I think that qualifies as a pushover. And while you're doing it, you're complimenting life, number one. But it doesn't do any good. It changes nothing, is the point of all that. So if there is any sweet talk that a person is going to do that would feed the one part of them that can be fed, that makes some difference, that's fun. Forget all that. It would have to be that which has nothing to do with what kind of guy you are. It would truly be, you're talking about ideas. Not just philosophical ideas, but you're talking about things that are not you. You're not sitting around talking. You're not engaged in self-analysis. You're not engaged in any form of psychiatric analysis. You're not engaged in any fictional telling of your story, of your life, even non-fictional, which is the same thing. You're not saying, somebody tries to bring up something about, have you ever noticed how city-states now, or how after World War II, how the imposed boundaries were placed upon certain areas of Europe. Now that there is a certain amount of political freedom, they are now disintegrating back around ethnic and racial lines. I'm just making an example that almost by itself in isolation seems like something having to do with the world of ideas. And what would you answer? You go, I have an aunt who came. I have an aunt. Well, I have a large part of my family, as a matter of fact, you may not know, is Slavic. Of which I assume you're referring to the Balkan. There's nothing wrong with that. That is just chit-chat. But you understand, the ordinary mind cannot whisper. The ordinary mind cannot deal. It's not even supposed to deal in anything resembling, although they got terms for it, the world of intellect. The people sit around. They have seminars and retreats. The people say, we go off to simply discuss great ideas, philosophy. No, you got to do is listen, and you'll be like my guy at the cocktail party. All you hear is I, me, I. You think, well, where's the ideas? And if you suddenly jumped out of these guys sitting out in the woods, half nude, discussing great ideas, it's a variation of the guys at the cocktail bar, and you say, I came up here to hear these great ideas you're discussing. All you guys talking about, well, where I went to school, or I remember the last time I was talking to Dr. So-and-so who wrote that book. And I remember when I told him my ideas, you go, I thought you were talking about great ideas. And they go, and that's that. They were. You know, where the fuck did you come from? You little pimple on our semi-bare ass. Get out of here. If you're talking about people, if you're talking about ordinary people, you're talking about I, which is just a variation of heroes. You're talking about I read this, I did that, I met any of that. You're not talking about anything but cats. You are back, as if we're going to use Western political accusations, you're back walking what they used to call the Communist Party line. That is, you're back working the cat line. Oh, you're trying to hide it, saying, oh, no, I'm patriotic, I'm faithful to the birds. And Senator McCarthy looks at you and he says, you don't fool me. That's nothing but the same old cat line, the same old cat party line, and you're trying to doctor it up by going, tweet, tweet, chirp, chirp. You don't fool this committee for a moment. Ha! Get him out of here.